Hello, fellow baggers, and welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. And we are here, of course, to preview the round 23 clash between Carlton and Port Adelaide. Bit of an interesting game, this one. Obviously, not much on the line for both teams. Both well and truly out of finals contention. And, I mean, the one thing that I'm looking at, of course, as a Baggers man, is to see whether or not the performance that's going to be put in against Port Adelaide is any different to what we saw a few rounds back, which was in round 16, which seems like, the last time that we faced Port Adelaide, it seemed like it was earlier in the season, but, it's 7 rounds on, and that performance, which was an absolute walloping at the hands of Port Adelaide to the tune of 50 points, 16-14, 110 to Carlton, 8-12, 60. It was, I think, a game where I thought well and truly the team was giving up, protesting, potentially how they were being managed by Michael Voss and the assistant coaches, because the lack of work rate and everything else that we saw on display in this game was very, very concerning. And the one takeaway for me that I remember of this game was with Jesse Motlop virtually pointing fingers at his teammates to pick up his own direct opponent. There was a bit of play that was on the defensive 50, and he was like, the ball was being kicked out by whoever it was, Haynes or Weeders, and he virtually pointed to his teammate, allowed his direct opponent to run off him and retrieve the ball whilst pointing to his teammate to pick up his own opponent. And it was stuff like that. And it was just like, mate, what are you doing? Like, you're guarding space, you're not putting in. He was just dragging his feet. And that just epitomized that game and Motlop as a whole, really. I'm not a massive fan of him because of that. And I saw that, and it was so perplexing, because I'm like, if you're not putting in 110%, if you're not putting in the effort required, what are you doing out on field? And there was many moments like that. It wasn't just Motlop, but there were many moments like that where guys are dragging their feet. They weren't putting in, gut runs and everything else. There was no sprinting. It was just dragging your feet to the next contest and the contest after that. And it was a very, very concerning sight to see. So this time around, we're just hopeful that we see a different Carlton outfit. It's going to be 2 games on from, of course, Voss being backed in by Graham Wright and those above him. And what we saw last week was a bit of the same old, but, the last quarter, you just hope that, that we can bottle that up and springboard off the back of that and just apply that across an entirety of a game. So I'm interested to see how we start this game. Can we start this game the way that we ended the game against the Suns? I mean, it's a big ask, of course, because I don't think that's happened. But, I think they surprised themselves that they were able to get back into the game against the Suns. And it just comes down to work rate and just taking risks, going through the middle. And again, that's coaching side of things as well. But hopefully Voss is getting some key learnings off the back of this. And it was that game, actually, against Gold Coast in 2023, that in the second half, Voss threw caution to the wind and just allowed the team to play with a bit more freedom. There was nothing to lose and everything to gain. And, we were running through the middle, using the corridor way more than what we were. And we springboarded off the back of that. And we were able to, obviously, take that momentum and that confidence off the back of it through to deep in the finals of 2023. And a lot of luck we rode as well, granted, but geez, we made a prelim. So I don't know. I mean, it's one quarter, and I'm probably just really optimistic that they can bottle that up and continue it for the last 2 games of the season. I mean, we're facing a Port Adelaide side that is in a very similar situation to us. They've got a changeover in coach now. It's Hinkley's second last game. And, what comes of it? A Port now just tiring. They know that change is inbound. Compare that to Carlton. Voss has been backed in. There will, of course, be changes around him in the assistant coaching ranks and everything else. We saw Brad Lloyd being given his marching orders as well. So there are movements in sort of the background, but, whilst 2 teams are very, very similar to what we've seen on field, off field, there's a little bit more stability in the Carlton side of things compared to Port Adelaide, where they're still moving, pawns and deck chairs, if you want to call it that. So interesting, really, time here. I think Port Adelaide, Hinkley, do they come out and try their best? I mean, they haven't, Port Adelaide, with the way that they've been playing either. But last 2 games of the season, do they come out galvanised? Do they see this as an opportunity that, they smashed us by 50 points the last time they played us? Or, in the Carlton side of things, are we further galvanised off the back of Voss being backed in? I mean, we didn't really see it for 3.5 quarters or 3 quarters against the Suns. Is it any different this time around? But let's go through the ins and outs, and a really, really big in. One of my favourites in the navy blue is Sammy Walsh, and he makes his return. I think his last game was in round 13. It may have been a little bit longer from memory, but yeah, he's poor bloke, battled through, foot injuries, hamstrings, back injuries, everything else, and, he deserves just a clean run. And even though it's only 2 games remaining in the season, at least it's an opportunity for Walshy to get some conditioning into his legs. And, to him, because he hasn't played as much as the other guys running out in field week after week, I imagine he hasn't been, exposed to the shitness that we've seen on field. So maybe he just comes out with full confidence and just absolutely smashes it. And I really hope he does. There's rumours as well that he may sign on, and I am very, very hopeful because, as I said, he's up there with one of my favourite players at Carlton at the moment. And I'm just so hopeful in what we saw in the 2023 final series when he was, awarded the best player across the final series. I just want to see that again, but a lot of that comes down to the way that he is being played and the role that he's being given. Now, I want to see him, yes, if you want to play him at the coalface, the CBAs, if you want to give him bulk CBAs, yes, but do not have him at the coalface playing an in and under game where he is exposed to, the bump and grind and everything else, because outside of the conditioning and physicality side of things, he plays his best work as an outside midfielder. That was the role that he had in the 2023 final series, when that was, I think, the best that we've seen Sam Walsh at. So if you want to play him at CBAs, no worries at all, do that, but allow him an outside game, because when he is almost a wingman and he's allowed that time and space to use his skills, he is an incredible user of the footy. And it's just such a shame, because when he's played as an in and under midfielder, as a contested possession midfielder, he struggles in terms of, being under pressure and having to kick under pressure. And that's just one of his deficiencies. It's unfortunate. Every player has them. That's his. And if you allow him to have more time and space, use the football, he is a great user of the footy. So again, Vossi, just look at the way that you were playing him across the 2023 final series, because what we've seen in the time where he has been fit, he's just not being played correctly. And I know this is an issue with the way that the coaching is being rolled out. We've seen it with Adam Sard being played as a lockdown defender as opposed to playing as a attacking defender, so on and so forth. Charlie being played in defence, Harry high up the ground when he should be a stay-at-home forward, and Charlie should be that high up the ground forward. It's just, there's ongoing issues here that need to be rectified, and I'm hopeful that, in needing to protect Walshy's body and allowing to sort of him to be eased into the football, I'm hopeful that this is the only way that Voss can actually play him as an outside midfielder. So I am hopeful of that. But making way is Will White, and it's unfortunate because I actually really like Will White. But are they now seeing that Frankie Evans, he's strung together, almost 2.5 games worth of good form? And, is it now a time where the coaches are seeing, okay, well, it looks as though Frankie Evans putting his hand up for that vacancy as the small forward role? I know it's only 2.5 games, but we've got another 2 games to go of the season. And if he can finish the season in the sort of form that we have seen over the past 2.5 games, well, Frankie, mate, I am all for you to be playing in that role. I know he's been a butt of my jokes in recent weeks, but for good reason, hasn't been in good form, has turned things around, and to his credit, he deserves all the plaudits. Meanwhile, we have, a shitload of small forwards that are getting games that aren't really performing. Jesse Motlop, I'm looking at you, and it looks as though now we're kind of narrowing our focus as to who may be okay or looking good in that role. Now, there is rumours as well, which of course we will speak about in the postseason side of things with trade and draft, but high flying Liam Ryan from West Coast, Liam Ryan, he is being linked to the club, and I actually wouldn't mind him to play sort of that small forward role. And who knows? I mean, it could be an incredible pickup, but it depends what West Coast would be after. But I mean, do we go down that route? Who knows? But just in terms of the trips that we do have, Frankie Evans is looking really, really good. For Port Adelaide, they're ins and outs. So Lockie Jones goes into the team. Out goes Jack Lukosius, who I think was injured last week, if I'm not mistaken. Let's quickly go through the team stats side of things and see where both teams line up. So disposals-wise, relatively even across the board. Inside 50s, 52.9 Carlton's way to Port Adelaide, 49.5, but relatively fairly even there. Disposal efficiency is very, very interesting. They actually bang on for both teams, struggling massively for disposal efficiency. And I didn't think there was another team that would actually be as bad as what Carlton is across the season, but there you go. Efficiency inside 50, slightly in the favour of Port Adelaide. Stoppage-wise, hit-outs, Port are actually winning the hitouts. They're actually doing quite well, 42.4 to Carlton's 35.1. Jordan Sweet has turned things around after being omitted or dropped in season. They then gave it to Vicentini, the young ruckman, but Sweet has wrestled that number one mantle back. And he's actually playing in some really good form. He's probably more of that old school ruckman, like a Pitnet. Does a little bit around the ground, but not as aerobic as, say, a TDK that we have. So I'm interested to see what this matchup brings and what TDK can bring to the table, because around the ground, I reckon TDK can really burn him. But in the hit-out stakes, I think it will probably go in the favour of Jordan Sweet, as it has kind of gone in the favour of our opponents in, more often than not. Clearance-wise, very even across the board, but in our favour by to the tune of 0.7. Centre clearances, very, very even. Stoppage clearances, even more even. Possession-wise, contested possessions, we actually average 13.3 more contested possessions than Port Adelaide. So that's an area of the game that I think we can really have a stranglehold on, especially considering that Voss, as he says, he loves to build his game plan off contested ball. Well, here you go, Vossi. He's a really good matchup. Uncontested possessions, very fairly even, but still in our favour to the tune of 2.3. Turnovers, fairly even across the board there. Marking-wise, in our favour to the tune of 5.6. Marks inside 50, bang on across both teams there. Contested marks. Now, this is interesting because there's not many teams out there that we can actually beat in terms of the contested marking side of things, but 10.2 in our favour to Port Adelaide 7.6. So another area that I am hopeful we can continue this dominance in. Scoring-wise, we averaged 10.9 to Port Adelaide 10.7, and behinds, even more even, 10.6 to 10.5. So very, very even matchup for both of these teams. And if you look at these sort of breakdown in averages and comparison, it's really a surprise to see our last encounter where we actually got smashed by 50 points. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you look at the stats, but I think, again, it just came down to effort, work rate, everything else in that game, and a different kettle of fish this time around. Defense-wise, we are laying more tackles, 65.1 to Port's 60.7. Tackles inside 50.2 in our favour. And in terms of 1%ers, 43.8 our way to Port's 42. Now, matchups-wise, let's have a quick look at this. Now, I said this in the last preview to our last encounter against Port Adelaide. Mitch Georgiadis, he has his way with us so often. And I think it's just the matchup-based side of things. We don't have someone that can go with him. I do not want to see Lewis Young being played as that defender on Georgiadis. Like we saw against Ben King last round, Lewis Young was lined up against or alongside him, and he got absolutely towelled up. Ben King kicked, 5 goals and looked like an absolute... He's a superstar in the making, but if we have Lewis Young, I know he's named at centre-half forward there, but if he plays in defence on Georgiadis, God help us, because he's going to kick a bag. I think last time Mitch kicked 5 goals, and we didn't have any answer to him. So would love to see just body on body, get Weeders on him and shut him down. Really, it's what we should have done against Ben King. He's 192 centimetres, so yes, he is tall, but we have options here. We have options. Could you even go for, I mean, you're giving away 4 centimetres here, but Lockie Cowan, bit of body on body, but also speed off the mark if you want to try and, wrestle with him, physicality-wise. But Weeders is that man. Nick Haynes, does he go with him? He matches up with him in terms of height. Physicality-wise, probably not, but would have that speed off the mark, I think. But Weeders, come on. It's just a slam dunk here, Vossi. Put Weeders on Georgiades, because if not, don't be surprised once we go through the review that Georgiades has kicked a bag again. So that's really where it's going to be won and lost in my eyes. Cooper Lord, my boy, Cooper Lord, finally is being named on field. He's being given game time, and it's only taken, 22 rounds into the season for Michael Voss to finally see and come to his senses that Cooper Lord actually belongs at senior level. He does not belong as a sub. He's shown smarts. He's shown, the work rate, and he's just that next gen player that should be at the coalface. So Cooper Lord, he will, again, I think, blanket and be given that role as tagger on Zach Butters. He's done an incredible job in recent weeks. I think it was Brayshaw he played on. Then he's played on Anderson, of course. Noah Anderson. Couldn't remember his first name. Good old Noah. So, yeah, it's another opportunity for Cooper Lord to add another string to his bow. And Jagger Smith actually spoke about it in an article in recent days as well, that obviously good mates and junior level and stuff. It was no surprise to Jagger to see him, Cooper Lord, being able to blanket and shut down plays, because he's had that defensive role in the past. So it's part of his makeup, it's part of his DNA, and he's able to unleash that now. And it's not just a tagger per se. He's someone that can really be defensive, shut down his opponent, but also on the other side of things, win his own ball and be quite offensive to great effect. So really great to see Cooper Lord, first and foremost, getting opportunity, finally, but also being able to perform and really show what he's capable of, because this kid is going to be an absolute star. Take it to the bank. You can quote me on that, because he is a gun. We have Hudson O'Keefe in the ruck, which is interesting, against Jordan Sweet. We've got to expose this bloke, I think, over the last 2 weeks of the season, see what he's got. And, of course, we have TDK up forward as well. Can switch hit with Hudson O'Keefe. And, yeah, kind of do a bit of a 1-2 punch against Jordan Sweet in that respect there. But outside of that, I mean, Zach Butters, if he can be shut down, it's leaving the work to Ollie Wines. It's leaving the work to, Travis Boak, who's, playing his last 2 games of his career. Connor Rosie, who's kind of playing more off half-back now. He's probably another guy, another danger player, I think, for us, that he provides that rebound off half-back for Port Adelaide. So if we can shut him down with maybe a defensive forward role, maybe Frankie Evans plays that role on Connor Rosie. He might be ideal for that. Because outside of that, I mean, we've obviously got Jesse Motlop, yes, but we've got Lockie Fogarty, Flynn Young, Corey Durden, and also as well, Billy Wilson. Congratulations. I did hear that he has signed a contract extension. So well-deserved young man, and great to see you stick around as a bagger from beyond 2025. But interesting as well, just will make a quick comment on Mitch McGovern, because he, I think, needs to play one more game to trigger a clause in his contract, which allows him to have an additional year, from what I gather, if he plays one more game. Now, hasn't been selected this week, is an emergency. By all reports, played well in the VFL last round, but it looks as though I think the club are taking a bit of a sneaky smart-ass approach here, because by not playing him, it means that they have to sort of renegotiate a contract fresh going into 2026 and beyond, which I don't mind. I mean, the money and everything that Mitch McGovern has been on, and you probably look at his time in the Navy Blue, and he hasn't delivered upon sort of expectations. He's been injured a lot, yes, we know that, but, he just hasn't been the player that we have been hoping he would be. He's had a lot of issues playing in defence, turnovers and questionable, I guess, decisions and everything else, which has resulted in crucial turnovers and goals to the opposition as well. He has shown in recent times an ability to go forward and perform. So I would actually like him as sort of that third tall forward going forward. I don't hate Gov, but I don't like him in defence. So I would love him to stick around at the club. I know that he does have some haters out there, and I must admit, he does piss me off at various stages in defence when he has those, classic Gov moments, but he can provide a bit of an option, I think. And as that swing man, in all likelihood, probably at this stage, it looks like that Sauce will be going. It means we're obviously a defender down. Harry O'Farrell's obviously out for the majority of 2026, if not all of 2026. So we're already down 2 tall defenders. So I am not a fan. I'm just kind of wary about the fact that I don't want to be losing key position depth, and especially in the defensive side of things, because of, the departures that we're already going to be having, and obviously with injuries and stuff as well. So I would like him to stick around, even as a depth player. Doesn't have to be best 22, 23, but if we need to, at least play him. For sort of first choice defenders, I would much prefer to have Nick Haynes, who's much older than him, playing the best 23, and warranted as well, because he's actually had an incredible season, bar his first game or two in the Navy Blue. But Mitch McGovern, yeah, I'm not too phased with that. If we lose him, all the best to him. But yeah, I think from a depth perspective, we need to be mindful of not cutting too deep and exposing ourselves, because we have had that issue in the past, as we know, in defence, by not having that depth there, where we had to rely upon the likes of Marchbank and everyone else. So yeah, just mindful of that. But that is it, ladies and gents. My prediction for this game, I'm going to say, believe it or not, Carlton. I think we will come away with a win this time around, provided that we maintain, that intensity, that work rate that we saw in the last quarter against the Suns. And it's funny to say, but, we could beat most teams on their day if we had that work rate and, the way that we were setting up everything else, because it was just scintillating viewing, just quick ball movement, being in the right positions, playing for your teammate, just basic stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to say we'll win. I'm going to say that we'll win by around about 11 points. It's going to be close throughout. Both teams, it's not going to be the most scintillating display, that's for sure. Both teams, issues with ball movement and everything else, and disposal efficiency. But yeah, I think we can come away with the win here at Marvel Stadium. And outside of that, we might finish the season with 2 wins on the trot if we can do the job against the Dons as well in round 24. But that is it. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments section. What are your expectations and what are your predictions? Will we come away with a win, or do you think we may fall short against Port Adelaide? Love to hear your thoughts as always. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Really do appreciate your company. Don't forget, of course, to subscribe, and really do appreciate all of your support in turn. But with that, ladies and gents, we'll see you in the review. We'll catch you then. Go Baggers.